my work with the National Library happened around last summer when I was originally looking for an internship, and I thought this would be a good opportunity, especially because my major at the time really resonated with the goals of the the book that we were working on. And so that's how it started. And then this past fall, I worked as an editor under Bob Kaiserman. And I've always wanted to work on a more unique project like this because typically internships follow more of a lab-based approach, at least for my major. So it's a lot of research regarding, like public health populations, et cetera. And I thought this would be a good way for me to become more familiar with the writing and the publishing world. So that's what got me to volunteer. So currently, I'm a human biology and society major at UCLA, which I personally think is just a fancy way to say public health. So when people ask me, I always just tell them I'm majoring in public health. And that's what I was majoring in at NYU previously before I transferred. So I've learned a lot from the various roles that I've had um, at MedFocus. And first, it began as researching and writing in a non-academic context. So I got to explore how to write for a broader audience rather than just for my professors or for my peers to review, and instead focus my writing on being able to educate the general population, which includes people of varying educational levels. And varying levels of reading comprehension. So later on, when I became an editor, I had to hone in on things like project management because I essentially had to keep a close eye on everyone's work, be able to organize it, and then eventually compile it into the manuscripts that were needed. So how this applies to my major has a lot to do with public health education specifically, and that's a topic that comes up repeatedly in my courses. And so these roles that I've had have taught me how to provide public health education to everyone, not just in the field of academia, and just being able to write and research in a way that everyone will find accessible. Yeah, so as of right now, my end career goal is to become a medical lawyer. So whether that means medical malpractice or patient advocacy in other ways, and so I think a lot of my future career will involve research. That's a lot of what law is comprised of. And I think my university experiences and my time at MedFocus have really prepared me for that because a lot of the books that we've done require a lot of intensive research across a lot of different subtopics for the various books that we've written. But I think what's more important is that this role has provided me with firsthand experience on patient advocacy. Because what I'm used to in my classes is just talking about this in sort of a theoretical sense, like what can we do to advocate for patients? What can we do to make sure that their experiences in like a healthcare setting are as comfortable as possible? When in reality, it's not enough to talk about these things just theoretically. You need to actually put them into practice to understand how they work. And I think working at MedFocus has allowed me to, again, kind of speak to the general population's needs in terms of what they need for education on, like we're working on right now, patient consumerism, for example. So, how does that apply to people's lives outside of the hospital? And I think things like that are what really inspire me to, go on this career path. Yeah, so my university experience has pretty much been me balancing like multiple jobs and school on top of internships. So even prior to me having this role, I've had a lot of experience with just having a lot of things on my plate and needing to work with a lot of time management in that regard. But my process is essentially that school always comes first. Because it's essentially my full-time job. And so I have to make sure that all of my schoolwork is completed before I do anything else. And that also includes like studying for finals, which is part of the reason why we had to postpone the mental health book publishing for a little bit because it seemed like everyone had to do their finals because, as you know, a majority of the team is college students,
Yeah.
included. Um, and then in a normal day, I typically will finish all of my schoolwork, and then I'll come home to send emails, edit manuscripts for a few hours, that kind of thing. And then whenever I have spare time, then I do, oh my gosh, sorry, my cat is jumping everywhere. My freelance work. So I'm an English tutor, and so that takes up just a couple of hours in the week. Um, but yeah, I think it's just been like many years of kind of learning how to schedule my time more effectively and what times I'm most productive in the day, that I'm able to balance all of these things. Yeah, so for the style of the books that we publish at MedFocus, the one aspect that I focus on is readability. So that means ensuring that all of the books are not only accessible information-wise, but also making sure that the grammar is correct and that the book is easy to get through while keeping readers entertained. And so one thing that I always encourage editors to do when they're publishing books like this is trying to make sure that if there are any types of, let's say, vocabulary, for example, that may be inaccessible to people who have never heard of this topic before, it's always good to define those terms in the context in which you're introducing them. But I think on top of that, what has allowed me to get to this specific editing style is my English tutoring experience. So a lot of times my students will come to me with prompts for a variety of different purposes. So things like college applications, school essays, etc. And so those different prompts require you to understand the different backgrounds and the audiences that whatever writing you're doing are targeting. And so that means really focusing on who your audience is while you're editing and ensuring that everything that you have will be accessible to them. Yeah, so I've really enjoyed working at MedFocus. I honestly feel like it has fulfilled me in some ways that other jobs have not. I think primarily because I've been able to assume kind of like higher positions that I haven't been able to previously. And so it's really nice to be able to see my work kind of come to fruition and being able to work with a group of very dedicated writers, as well as Bob. He's been absolutely fantastic throughout this journey. But yeah, I'm really excited to just continue working on different projects as, maybe the months or the years go on, however long I decide to commit to this project.